Severe weather warnings still active for parts of southeast Queensland, heavy rainfall, flash flooding risks, thunderstorms tracking through the interior, and questions about what happens next with the remnants of ex-tropical cyclone Koji. That is what we're covering today. I've gone through the latest data from the Bureau of Meteorology, looked at the model outputs, and there's a fair bit to unpack here. So let's get into it. Right now, the monsoon trough remains active across northern Australia. It's been a busy start to the cyclone season, one of the most active we've seen in nearly 2 decades. 7 named systems already in the Australian region since November, and we're not even through January yet. That is significant. The last time we saw activity like this was back in the 2005-2006 season. Now, the big question on everyone's mind, particularly if you are in Queensland, is what is happening with Koji-S remnants. Tropical cyclone Koji made landfall between Eyre and Bowen on the morning of the 11th of January as a Category 1 system. Before that, it had briefly strengthened to Category 2 in the Coral Sea, with sustained winds around 95 kilometres per hour and gusts exceeding 130. The system brought torrential rain. Some areas copped over 600 millimetres. Mount Dukes recorded 395 millimetres in just 1 week, with 251 of that falling in a single 24-hour period. That's an extraordinary amount of water hitting already saturated catchments. Since crossing the coast, ex-tropical cyclone Koji has tracked westward through inland Queensland. And I know some of you have been watching the model outputs, particularly the ICON model, with some rather dramatic predictions about the system potentially regenerating over the top end, or even crossing into Western Australia as a significant cyclone. Let me address that directly. The ICON model has been showing some aggressive scenarios, including the remnants potentially redeveloping into a system with winds exceeding 280 kilometres per hour somewhere over Western Australia. That would be a Category 5 cyclone. For context, here's my assessment. That is an outlier scenario at this stage. The more reliable guidance from the ACCESS model, which is the Bureau's primary forecasting tool, and the ECMWF, the European model, both suggest the remnants will continue to weaken as they track through the Gulf country. There's some disagreement about whether the system might briefly flirt with redevelopment near the Gulf of Carpentaria, but the consensus is against a full reformation into a named cyclone. That said, I am not ruling it out entirely. We've seen systems do unexpected things before. Cyclone Kirrily back in 2024 did something similar. Crossed the coast near Townsville, tracked inland, moved through the Gulf country, and there was genuine concern it might redevelop. It didn't reach cyclone strength again, but it maintained gale force winds near Mornington Island for nearly 24 hours. So for those in the Gulf country, the top end, and particularly around Burketown and the Western Queensland interior, this system bears watching. The Bureau will continue monitoring it. But based on current data, ID assess the probability of significant redevelopment as low, perhaps 10 to 15%. What I am confident about is continued heavy rainfall. The remnant low is maintaining an active monsoonal rain band. That moisture isn't going anywhere quickly. Expect showers and storms right across northern Queensland, with totals of 50 to 100 millimetres possible in the next few days for some inland communities. Now, let us shift focus to what is happening right now in southeast Queensland, because that is where the immediate action is. As of yesterday afternoon, the Bureau issued severe thunderstorm warnings for the southeast interior. A moist and unstable air mass combined with a surface trough produced some significant storm activity. We saw 61 millimetres of rain recorded at Terrain in just 30 minutes during the morning. That's intense rainfall by any measure. Flash flooding risk was elevated right across the Darling Downs through to Warwick, Toowoomba, Dalby and Gatton. Conditions this afternoon remain unsettled. The trough is still in place. Sea surface temperatures in the Coral Sea are running above 29 degrees Celsius, which is fueling the moisture feed into the atmosphere. The Bureau's thunderstorm tracker is showing activity developing through the ranges west of Brisbane, tracking northeast. For those in the warning area, including parts of the Scenic Rim, Southern Downs, Toowoomba and extending into the Moreton Bay region, conditions remain conducive for severe storms. Heavy rainfall leading to flash flooding, damaging winds and large hailstones are all possible. Keep your car under cover, away from trees, charge your devices, have your emergency kit accessible. Brisbane itself has been on the edge of this activity. Some parts of the city and surrounding areas have missed out on decent rain this summer. Aspley, for instance, has had bugger all rain compared to normal. Meanwhile, other areas copped that significant storm earlier in the month. The shelf cloud that moved through Brisbane around midday was impressive. Winds and rain felt as strong as what we experienced back in November 2024. Some small hail reported. Classic squall line activity. The Gold Coast got a good soaking yesterday. Arvo settled the dust, as someone put it. Same story for parts of the Sunshine Coast and surrounds. But here's the thing about southeast Queensland this summer. The rainfall distribution has been incredibly patchy. Toowoomba has recorded just 35 millimetres since the 1st of December. That's well below what you'd expect for this time of year. Some areas are getting hammered with storms. Others are watching them fizzle out before arrival. Nambour-S, a good example. Storms seem to dissipate before they get there this season. This is fairly typical behaviour when you've got a weak La Niña influence combined with variable steering patterns. The large-scale setup is there for storms, but where they fire and where they track is highly dependent on local effects. Hills, sea breezes and subtle variations in the trough position can make all the difference. Looking at the broader picture for the week ahead, the forecast signal for Queensland is mixed. The Bureau-S outlook for the fortnight shows roughly equal chances of above or below average rainfall for northern and eastern Queensland. That's what we call a weak signal. It means the models aren't confident about a particular outcome. What they are confident about is temperatures. Maximum temperatures across parts of eastern Queensland are likely to be below average for the next week or two. That S tied to the cloud cover and storm activity. You've been dealing with temperature whiplash lately, 30 degrees one day, 18 the next, then back up again. People have been crook all over the place. Flu, sinus issues, headaches. That pattern should settle down somewhat as we move through the week, but don't expect dramatic stability just yet. For those further north, up around Townsville, you've had 4 days of afternoon storms in a row now. That weak microburst that went through on the weekend, the shelf cloud activity, that is all connected to the same moisture feed from the remnant monsoon activity. Expect continued chances of afternoon storms through the week, with the usual caveats about timing and intensity being hard to pin down more than a few hours in advance. Cairns and far North Queensland remain in the classic wet season pattern. Hot, humid storms most days, nothing unusual there. Mount Carbine recorded 30 degrees at 9:30 in the morning the other day, with 75% humidity and an overnight minimum of 26. Then copped 113 millimetres from that storm system a couple of nights ago. That's serious rainfall. Now, let me touch on what is happening outside Queensland, because the weather patterns across Australia are interconnected. Down in New South Wales, the focus shifts to potential thunderstorm activity later in the week as a trough moves through. The moisture feed from the tropical north can sometimes extend down into northern New South Wales, bringing isolated heavy falls. Worth watching if you're in the northern rivers or New England regions. Victoria and southern states have been dealing with their own challenges. The fire season is active in parts of the southeast. While Queensland cops flooding, Victoria-S had to manage fire risks. This is Australia in summer. Different extremes in different places, often at the same time. The Bureau-S climate outlook through to April suggests maximum temperatures are likely to be above average across most of Australia. That includes Tasmania, New South Wales, northern Victoria and southern Queensland, where there is an increased chance of unusually high daytime temperatures. Minimum temperatures are also expected to run above average, particularly in the tropical north. Sea surface temperatures around Australia remain elevated. December was the 4th warmest on record globally for ocean temperatures. The waters off the northeast coast and much of the western coast are running above average. That extra warmth in the ocean is fuel for tropical systems. It is why we've seen such an active start to the cyclone season, and it is why the atmospheric moisture content remains high. The weak La Niña that has been in place is expected to transition to neutral conditions sometime in the January to March period. There is about a 68% chance of that transition, according to the latest Bureau guidance. After that, the models start to show increasing probabilities of El Niño developing later in the year. That is a long way off, and forecasts beyond a few months carry significant uncertainty, but it is worth being aware of the broader climate context. Coming back to the immediate situation in Queensland, what should you actually do with this information? If you are in an area that has been affected by flooding from Koji and the floodwaters are still receding in some catchments, continue to follow the guidance from your local council and emergency services. Don't drive through floodwater. If it's flooded, forget it. That message hasn't changed since they started using it, and it remains the most important piece of flood safety advice there is. For those in areas expecting severe thunderstorms over the coming days, the basics apply. Know where your emergency kit is. Have a plan for where you will shelter if a severe storm hits. If you've got elderly relatives or mates who live alone, check in on them. Make sure they've got a way to receive warnings and know what to do. If you are in a rural area with livestock, the continued wet conditions present their own challenges. Waterlogged paddocks, potential for bogging, and the ongoing need to check on stock in affected areas. Many of you know this better than I do, having lived through worse conditions before. For anyone planning outdoor activities this week, particularly around Brisbane and the southeast, keep an eye on the forecast. Storms can develop quickly in the afternoon. The Bureau S Thunderstorm Tracker is a useful tool for near real-time updates on where activity is developing. Looking further ahead, the second half of January looks like more of the same. The monsoon trough remains active across the north. Storm chances continue for the east coast. The wet season pattern is well established and isn't going anywhere soon. Some of you have asked whether storm season might have a second peak in February, similar to what we used to see more regularly in previous decades. It is possible. The climate drivers are there for continued activity. But predicting the timing and intensity of individual events weeks in advance isn't possible with current technology. What I can say is that the broad conditions favour continued storm activity through February and into March. The 7-day outlook from the Bureau has high to very high chances of showers and thunderstorms for Townsville, Cairns and Rockhampton, including the potential for severe storms and flash flooding across parts of central and northern Queensland. That is consistent with what we've been seeing and what the models are showing. For the Coral Sea specifically, the Bureau S Tropical Cyclone Outlook continues to monitor for new development. The monsoon trough can spawn new lows at short notice when conditions align. We're in the peak of the cyclone season now, the period from January through March when the majority of named systems typically develop. Don't become complacent just because Koji has passed. Another system could develop with relatively little warning if conditions come together. That is the situation as it stands. Active monsoon, remnant low tracking through the Gulf country, severe thunderstorms across parts of the southeast, continued wet conditions for the tropical north, and temperatures that should settle into something more predictable as the week progresses. I'll continue monitoring the situation and providing updates as things develop. The Bureau updates its forecasts and warnings regularly, and I encourage everyone to use those official sources as your primary reference. The BOM app, the website, and your local emergency services channels all provide timely information when conditions change. For those who have been through the wet over the past week, I hope the cleanup goes smoothly. For those still dealing with active warnings, stay safe and make sensible decisions. And for everyone else, keep an eye on the sky and be prepared to adjust your plans if conditions change. That's all for today. Stay safe out there, and I'll catch you in the